Oakland Socialist was recently privileged to interview Artem Tidva, who is a union organizer for social movement in Ukraine. Where are you right now, Artem?
Now I'm in Khmelnytsky city. It's between central and western Ukraine.
And how are things where you are?
Kids walking, people playing with dogs. It's Sunday now. So people have a holiday. Last night we had two air alert alarms, airstrike alert alarms.
When I was in Lviv, when you're walking around, it seemed like just any normal kind of older European city. But then every once in a while, you'd be reminded this is a country at war. Like you'd see sandbags along basement windows, then you'd get the air raid sirens. And so there's no escaping it. Artem has been a union organizer for social movement in Ukraine. And I was asking him about the situation for the unions, starting with the situation for the old unions that descended from the state-run unions under the Soviet Union.
Yeah, we have, as any country, we have some percent of yellow trade unions, because some employers also using this like union busting tactics to create the controlled one organizations to be opposed in active organizations, or maybe even for optimizing of some processes in business and so on. Yeah, we facing with, after Soviet Union, we got a biggest one, the Federation of Trade Unions. It's the biggest confederation. But after Soviet Union collapse, trade unions were reorganized in independent Ukraine, and they have their own story of elections of the heads. Some different powers tried to collaborate with them to make a labor union be under control of the power. Some tried to make some actions in political movement. Even maybe for last 5 years, they tried to organize their own kind of social democratic party. And at 90s, maybe even 80s, late 80s, trade unionists who had some knowledge about trade unionism and so on, but their local trade union in the mines, for example, iron ore mines or coal mines, were not presented their interests. And at 90s, when the legislation allowed to create alternative unions as you want, so much as you wish, because in Soviet Union we has a right to do this, but no one did it because of totalitarianism of regime. And in the 90s, some articles of the law about trade unions, law about labor, workers' rights, and so on, were saved, were kept, and some of them are still in power. And people has created their own alternative to the main trade union. And even in trade union organizing books, we can read the example of ArcelorMittal in Kryvyi Rih city. It's the biggest, one of the biggest iron ore company in Kryvyi Rih city, which is the longer in Europe city. It's built on the iron ore place of development, and on some sources of iron ore, and mines were built there before Soviet Union. I think Ukrainian capitalism were burnt in this in this kind of infrastructure, which lead to railway building and so on. Also, this ArcelorMittal company in Kryvyi Rih, which own some iron ore mines and some.
Artem describes the situation inside this company, ArcelorMittal Kryvyi Rih.
In this company, they have 11 trade unions, but I heard some rumors that some of trade unions on the company were created with the help of management. So management created this to weaken already existed trade unions in the company, but it didn't help the company. For last 2 years, these all 11 trade unions made alliance against employer. One of the union, it's of the same this company is originally from this post-Soviet Federation of Trade Union, which is biggest one, and as you said, kind of pro-state, maybe pro each regime and so on. But it's difficult to say that the organization of millions of people are homogenic. It's different between cities and cities, between companies and companies, between department in each in the same company. Members of the same trade unions could have their different minds about different things, and it's difficult to say that some trade unions is totally under the state control or totally under management control, and there are some fluctuations, there are some human relations which make differences. It's not Belarus and even not Russia where it's possible to totally control trade union by put in the people from KGB to rule the trade union, as we got from last 1.5 year in Belarus. You could hear it. Yeah, and now it's really problematic to have any dialogue with their trade unions.
Artem talks about the effect of the war on union solidarity between Russian and Ukrainian workers.
Before the war started, we had a lot of cooperations. We in Ukrainian unions, we had the same international trade unions internationals, like PSI, Public Service International, like IUF International, the Union of the Food Workers, and Industrial, and so on and so on. We all were in the same trainings for union reps, in the same media, in the same media field, and we try to know what's happening, where we knew some information about people who were arrested in Russia for some positions, about people in Kazakhstan when these protests were, about trade unionists in Belarus who were taken into the prison from BKDP. It's a kind of independent one, trade union confederation, where people make some publications against the war in Ukraine, and they were put in a jail. For example, in Kiev, our leftist group, social movement, Социальный рух, it's were involved in construction. In construction, they tried to organize construction workers in trade unions. Also, leftists from social movement were active in this gig economy delivery services. One of our activists were from. He is a leader of trade union of delivery service, and also our movement is connected with some feminist studies. We're trying to make feminism more closely to to women who are like workers, because feminism, which is trying to be academic in some kind of isolation, is not really, you know, feminism of practice. It's theoretical theory, which is not interesting for us. We're trying to make Marxist as instrument of class struggle. We're trying to make feminism as instrument of women liberation. We try to make trade unions as instrument of human class warfare, I don't know, struggle for dignity and so on. And we had a small call before the war, maybe half of year before, maybe more, with friends from Russian Socialistic Action, I think, or Russian Socialist Movement. I cannot remind what is their correctly name. RSD, Russian Socialistic, or действия, which mean action, or движение, which mean movement. Okay, so and they did the same. They has a contacts with construction workers in their cities. They has contact with delivery services, gig platform. They has a contact with feminists. So I don't know. Maybe it's a way, like in post-Soviet countries, leftists could build a movement. We didn't made some common plans. It just was a way how we and they did. Since the war, it's difficult to talk with any Russian leftists or Russian trade unionists who are supporting the war. It's impossible. It's totally impossible.
Are you saying that the Russian trade unionists with whom you had been in contact are now supporting the war?
My friends are nice guys and girls, but some our friends from construction field, from construction in from public service, trade unions, and so on. They has at least no any position against war.
So they're kind of trying to be neutral, are you saying?
Maybe it will be good if they will try to be at least neutral. Maybe I will have no reason to talk about them bad, but some of them are trying to be neutral, but organizing some events like against NATO invasion in Ukraine. So it's really weird to hear for us something like this from people who didn't say anything about intervention of their country in our country.
What I'm gathering from what you're saying is that the war, that the invasion of Ukraine has been really quite divisive as far as dividing up the working class in Russia and in Ukraine.
If we're talking about solidarity, I think yes. Like solidarity between Russian and Ukrainian working class, now it's difficult to imagine. Big political subject in Ukraine, big political like unit in Ukraine. Oh, sorry, not in Ukraine, in Russia, which could be opposed to the kills of thousands of people. In Ukraine, all trade unions are against it.
I would imagine that the war, the present situation, has really set back union organizing in Ukraine. Can you comment on that?
Even for me, it was difficult maybe for first 1.5 months after war started. It was difficult to read something about, not about war, not about Ukraine. And if we are, for example, now with trade unions, if we are planning some trainings, we have to include this in agenda in some kind of way, because of it's difficult for people to find time and talking about something which not about their current needs. And but from the other hand, I see a great opportunities for trade unions and for I don't know, for all institutions to define their ability or their capability to react on current people needs. I had experience of working with trade unions, which has no any strategy of trade union organizing in future, but it was kind of big trade unions with no stimul to change something in their tactics. And during trainings, these trade unions recognize that they have to start talking with concrete groups of the workers if they want to be more strength, if they want to take more. Yeah, and in Ukraine we still has a big trade unions. Some of them were not really active, but it's impossible to say that they're totally inactive. Sure, they are active in some sectors in every company where they still have some collective agreements which still proposing for workers some social package and some social insurance. Yeah, but we can do more them to be more proactive, more critique to some state initiatives, and but they are like they are not, I don't know, some of them are not leftists like we are. So yeah, we are facing with big structures which have to be like more active, I think. In Ukraine we had a temporarily law legislation during martial law, like
Right.
temporarily labor law deregulation during martial law, and this is kind of opportunities for management to to delay salaries, to fire some activists.
It turns out that the AFLCIO has a presence in Ukraine and is doing training in union organizing. I pointed out the irony of the fact that they have had a total failure as far as organizing in the United States, but now they're going to teach union organizing in Ukraine.
Yeah, sure, they don't really like us, like leftists, like social movement concrete, because we are doing those what they are trying to do, but for free, and maybe in some kind of way more effectively. But as for me, in Ukraine, they created a space for communication of workers of different trade union, which also could be used by us too.
Artem gives a final appeal to the international working class.
An international labor movement have to show their solidarity, and now you can saw that from the 1st May, the Swiss transport workers start to blocking cooperation with Russian ships, and we heard about the same about UK, where transport workers avoid of work with Russian ships, and this way of solidarity could help for Russian trade unionists, for Russian workers, to understood that if everyone in the world are judged their aggression, maybe they did something wrong. Maybe they have to try understand why everyone is against this war. Every city where Russian military intervening in, a lot of people dying, there are a lot of people kidnapping, a lot of people were injured, and we have to arm our workers. We have to help our workers to came back into their houses, into their peaceful life, with their hands, with their legs. So we have to help them.
Artem makes an appeal for financial support from workers in the West. I was in Ukraine, in Lviv. I visited the social movement. I brought some first aid kits with me. Here is a picture of those first aid kits being packaged up at the post office and sent to help save the lives of workers and soldiers at the military front. There's also, as you see, a link to where you can donate to the social movement in Ukraine. I urge people who are watching this video to take down that website address and make a donation to social movement in Ukraine.